watch on my cell phone.
Afternoon, everyone. I will call the meeting to order. Joe will be with us shortly. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Thanks for bringing out the flag. Lisa.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. Do we have any public comments? Okay. Kevin, would you like to lead us through the local labor monitoring report?
All right, good afternoon. So I have the April 2022 meter report. Covers our site visits between April 1st and April 30th of 2022. During this period, we made 68 monthly site visits. We made 6 follow-up visits during the month of April. We had a residency of 415 workers. Of those, we had 14 non-compliant, 12 of which were no proof of residence. Should we go through the specifics of each of the non-compliance with you? Should I go through all those?
I guess to summarize, when you revisited what I saw on one recent one, somebody was just removed from the site. So I take that as no ID out of area. If you went back and they were not compliant or the majority compliant when you follow up.
Yep, sometimes in the instance of that recent one you're talking about, the individual wasn't on the site because he was fired by the company, but he was one of the other workers who was local son. So I knew he was a local guy, but he was fired because of work performance, another issue altogether. But so 12 issues of no proof of residence, that was over 6 jobs. There were 2 out of area. That was on one project with Rochester Rigging. They were removed from that job, and they're gonna have new local riggers there in a couple of weeks. There were 0 cases of invalid ID. USRA Manitow, the current overall, as of the time of this report, was 72.1%. As of most recent, I believe it was 69.1, and the most recent I've seen. As of April 30th, 2022, all monitored sites were in compliance at the time of our visits. We had 2 new COMIDA signs delivered. One was to Lifecycle North America Hub Incorporated, and the other was Micropen Technologies Corp.
Do we think the 72.1% is an aberration or gonna keep growing?
I can keep growing. I think the biggest detriment to those numbers were primarily the steel workers. But as they're starting to filter off the job site and there's more local finishing trades coming in, I think that's gonna get them hopefully well above 70, hopefully 75 and above. We're hoping for the best. I'm actually going back to this afternoon, so we're having regular visits every 2 weeks with them, reviewing the incoming labor and making sure that we're as local as possible in that process.
Great. It's just terrific to see it above 70%.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay. Any questions for Kevin? Okay, thanks very much.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Take care, Kevin.
All right, Brian LaFountain, the local labor exemptions report. Hi, Brian.
Okay, good afternoon. Today I have one local labor exemption request to report on that was processed in April, and that's for 3453 Union Street LLC, also known as C&M Forwarding. So this exemption originally started out as a no local labor available. So this was related to the masonry work there. We couldn't find a local masonry crew. When we processed the exemption, we provided them with a listing of additional local contractors to reach out to. Before we wanted to consider the exemption, they reached out to some other local contractors. And once they received the bids on that work, they resubmitted the local labor exemption request under the cost differential process. cost differential criteria, and we processed that, and we recommended approval on that based on cost differential.
And it was 60-something%.
Yeah, it was like 65%.
Any questions, Brian? All right, thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
And Troy reminds me, we need to go back and get an approval on our minutes from the last meeting. So I asked for a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of April 19th and April 27th. Oh, that's right, we had two. Thanks, Red. Is there a second? Seconded by Lisa. Any additions, changes to the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Greg, our financial report. Getting richer and richer every day.
Path here, so through 4 months in
It's a little hard to
2022.
hear him, is there a microphone? No. Guess not.
Is that better?
I don't think it's turned on. Maybe you could just speak up.
I can speak, my voice is I'll speak up. So, through 4 months of 2022, you can see, our cash continues to grow, with respect to our projects that we close on. And currently, we have 7 million, a little over 7 million as our cash, and the restricted cash, remember, represents the 2.5 million we set aside for the modernization plan, plus the 10% of the projects that we have closed in 2022. So if you take our fee revenue of 2.124 times 10%, that gets us to the additional 212,000 over the 2.5. That is the money we have set aside for the modernization plan so far this year. And as you'll see on the dashboard, we have committed so far 400,000 to be spent on that 2.7. That's for the YAMTEP that was, I believe, approved last month. So again, we're going to keep track of that, just like I said, money coming in, money going out, so we can constantly see what that balance represents. The prepaid expenses really represent just timing differences in terms of both the county comprehensive plan that we paid for last year, plus the PTAC funding that we have also funded last year. We continue to amortize that down as the expenses are incurred. All of the other balances and liabilities are to budget and according to plan. As you can see, we're already at 1.464 change in net assets. That's in theory, our profit, our revenue over expenses. All of last year, we were at 1.764. We can continue to talk about all the fees the projects that we have generated in years past. And again, that's a cumulative effect of where we are. I'll talk a little bit more about that, as I close here. In terms of revenue expenses through 4 months, fee revenue is 2.1 million. Last year, we know we were at a torrid pace as well, probably the best year ever last year. This is even better. So all good there. And our expenses are all aligned to what we had budgeted for. The majority of that, again, that program and community development represents both the Empower programs, GRE, PTAC, the comprehensive plan, and the Monroe 5G program that was, I believe, committed to a few months back. So that represents $288,000 of our program and community development. In terms of, kind of like forecast and everything else, we have revenue of $2.1 million this year. You will see on the dashboard, we have approved projects just in 2022 of $3.7 million. We paid on a little of that in 2022. Most of the money that's been closed are for 21 projects. And that represents about, remaining $2.7 million. So we have about, combined, for all the projects that were closed or approved, we have about $6.5 million in our backlog that have been approved, not yet closed. So, as we look out and we approve programs and spend, just take that into consideration. In addition to what we have set aside in terms of our assets and our cash balance.
Greg, quick question. When do we recognize all of the revenue when the project closes?
Closes.
Okay,
Closes.
so that's 100% recognition of the fee at that point.
Yes, when it closes, not when it's approved. That's when it's approvable when it closes.
Got it.
And so, again, in terms of what we have committed to, right? So if you say, okay, we got $9 million, $6.5 million in backlog, that, again, it's hard to predict that. We don't always know when that's gonna close. That could be 18 months, it could be next year. But we have committed, the Empower program, we committed to that last fall, about $1.5 million. It's about $500,000 for the next 3 years. The healthcare Empower program, that was $200,000. That's basically from January to June of this year. We have the GRE that we always continue to support. That's about $50,000 a year that we support that. The PTAC program is $91,000. The county comp plan, again, a 3-year plan, that's $200,000 we've committed to support. The Marrow 5G is a $150,000 commitment. The modernization plan is $2.5 million, just the initial funding, and then 10% of our fees. And then the Yamtown program is $400,000. The Jazz Fest, so it's a little over $5 million, right, that we have committed to in certain stages of the life cycle of those contracts. So I think we're doing a tremendous job of, obviously generating the revenue, but also putting it back into the programs that are approved and we support. So
It's interesting on the revenue front that it's 3 times year to date for 4 months.
it's,
I had a budget.
Yeah.
Budgeted revenue.
I think we've, again, generally are, you kind of look at the organization over the past 5 or 6 years. Before last year, we were doing about $2 million a year.
Right.
Pretty consistent. Some were 2.2, some were 1.8, but we were always pretty consistent at 2 million. We're already there in 4 months.
No, I know. So that's good. Any other questions, comments for Greg? Whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
You guys are doing it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome to Joe. Okay, you're just in time. The first project is Lou Engineers. Anna, you want to walk us through that?
New Engineers is a local engineering firm established in 1980, and the company is relocating within the city of Rochester to accommodate growth. The proposed location will allow the company to expand to 10,000 square feet with the option to expand an additional 5,000 square feet in the future. The renovations will include more offices and workstation areas to accommodate engineers and field staff, as well as a larger conference area for company training and presentations. This $188,500 project will create 15 new FTEs over the next 3 years, in addition to the existing 48 FTEs. The applicant is seeking sales tax exemptions only. The benefit to incentive ratio is 716 to 1.
Thanks, Anna. We have Cletus and Zenwa and Paul Safinski with us.
Paul Safinski, Cletus is not here yet. They're supposed to be here, but he's not here.
You're Paul.
Yep.
You want to go ahead and give us an update beyond what we've just talked about? Or
Yeah,
add any additional information that step
Sure.
up to the podium?
well, currently, we've signed a lease with Buckingham. It's going to be at Tower 2A. So we're taking up the lease space in the bottom portion of Bergman. Bergman is below there. It's been empty for a while, but after looking at it, it fit our needs perfectly. It checked all our boxes for parking, food, and being in the center of town. That's something we were really looking for from where we are at East Avenue, Old Cadillac Building. Since Cletus has bought New Engineers, they've expanded to different offices across the state. we've exceeded our space limit where we're currently located from 5,000, so we need approximately 10,000, maybe even more going on in the future. So we anticipate some growth pending the economy. Right now, construction is in Buckingham's. It's in their realm. They're doing all the construction costs. I've already met with them and some of their contractors, and I know even the business as senior project manager, most of all the people that are there that I saw are all local contractors, so that's good news. And then on our end, we're hiring for, what we have to do is IT, moving, some signage, it's all local. And so we're hiring for what's on what we owe for that 188,000. So we're just looking for some incentive to ease the pain of the moving and the expansion from the county.
So most of your work in engineering is in transportation?
Transportation, civil, and highway, yeah, and environmental, we do a lot of environmental.
The history on our packets on page 25 is really terrific to see that local company was formed in the 80s. Joe apparently retired and the employees bought it and
Yeah, the employees that bought it, they're supposed to still work there. We moved from, I think it was Pittsburgh area into the city about 7 years ago, and then Cletus purchased it from the 5 employees who owned it. What was it, 3 years ago or 5? 17. Yeah, roughly 5 years ago. So he passed the 5-year mark of purchasing it. Yeah, so we're going strong, and he's walking the door right now.
oh. Good afternoon. You always have a seat. We were just talking about you. You want to step up to the podium and elaborate a little bit on your project? Paul has just walked us through it, but we're,
Nowhere special.
good afternoon.
So, our portion of the project is really basically to move into a new office as much as everything that is needed to furnish the new office, and also to assist in moving from the old office to the 3 blocks up in the city down to the new office, which is under the contractor is doing the developer is actually doing the modification, the actual construction. And our own cost will be basically finishing and moving.
We're just talking about the history of the company. It's very impressive.
Oh, okay.
And you are the current 100% owner.
Yes,
Growing, so that's a good success story.
I joined the company only 5 years ago by way of acquisition. I was part of another company at the time, Circus, and I chose to invest in Rochester a few years ago and bought the company, and almost instantly we were lucky to get business and double the size of the company within 5 years. The company in itself is quite old. It was established by Joe in the 80s, early 80s. And that's what I was doing in high school. And so when I got involved with Prepaid Engineering, which is 1993, and ran that with a partner for 20 years. So I grew that to a point where we wanted to split it in 2. Then I moved to right into Prohibition.
Thanks for elaborating on the project a little bit and on your background. So any questions from the board at this point? Okay, there was no need for a public hearing on this matter. I need to ask you some local labor questions. You walked in just in time. I'm gonna give you a couple questions.
Okay, that's fine.
Are you aware of our local labor policy?
Yes, I am.
And do you anticipate any local labor exemptions at this time?
No, we don't.
And are you aware that any exemptions need to be requested 45 days in advance?
That's correct.
Thank you. The seeker process is complete, and we'll now move forward with the reading of the resolution.
A regular meeting of the County of Monroe Industrial Development Agency is held at the.
Move to waive the reading of the resolution and subsequent resolutions for this meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Joe. Any other comments on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Since we have the resolutions in our packet, we read them thoroughly. So now I'll ask for a motion for inducement and final resolution approving a sales tax exemption.
A motion.
Moved by Lisa, seconded by Joe. Any other comments, questions? I'll take a roll call vote. Jay?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Troy?
Okay.
Joe?
Yes.
Rhett?
Yeah.
And Ann is a yay. So that's unanimous. Congratulations and good luck to you on this next expansion.
Thank you so much.
You're very
Thank you for your
welcome.
time.
Thanks for
Good luck.
staying in Monroe County and growing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next project is the Ambassador Union Street LLC.
Ambassador Union Street LLC is proposing the renovation of the existing Ambassador apartment building and neighboring multi-unit house to a 90-room Marriott Tribute Portfolio Hotel in downtown Rochester. The city of Rochester is supportive of this project. This building is over 99 years old and is in need of major renovations in order for it to comply with modern building code regulations. The new hotel will be located in the neighborhood of Clay. The building is located in the distressed census tract with 16.5% unemployment and 23.2% residing there at or below the poverty level. And therefore, the project qualifies. The applicant plans to create 23 new FTEs over 3 years, in addition to the 2 existing FTEs. The $20 million project is seeking a real property tax abatement, mortgage recording tax, and sales tax exemption. The cost to benefit ratio is 16:1.
Thanks, Anna. With us today, we have Don Williams Fuller and Doug Nicey.
Yes.
Welcome. Would you like to step up to the podium and make any additional remarks about your project?
Absolutely.
Sorry, we've got a tricky map.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dawn Williams, managing member of Ambassador Union Street LLC. I have Doug Nicey here with us today. He's our development consultant. I'd like to thank you for considering this project that saves and rehabilitates almost 100-year-old building that we are very fond of into a 90-room Marriott Tribute Portfolio Hotel. As was shared, the building is at end of life, and back in 2017, we started looking at ways in which to develop it. We looked at multifamily first, but this use was not feasible given the existing building. Given the site, our site is very irregular, and a good quarter of the site is landlocked, so you can't develop it. So multifamily was not feasible. So we looked at hotel use, and we found that that would be feasible as long as we controlled costs. So the COMIDA programs would allow us to mitigate costs, allowing us to then make the significant capital investment of $20 million into the building and into downtown Rochester. And as you shared, we've been working with the city from the very beginning, when we shared the vision with them, and, they had certain requirements of us, which we have met. And, it's consistent with the Rochester 2034 placemaking plan, as well as the inner transformation, which we have all seen, has made a wonderful neighborhood of play. So this project is very consistent with that, creating a neighborhood to live, work, and play. So as I close with my comments, I would just like to say in 2010, when we purchased the Ambassador apartment building, it was nothing like what it is today. But even then, our goal was to do business and serve the community on Union Street. And our goal today is still the same. We want to do business downtown Rochester on Union Street and serve our community. And the COMIDA programs will enable us to make the larger investment in the community that will keep us doing exactly what we started doing in 2010.
I have a question.
Yes.
In your write-up, you talk about the existing two-story house that's landlocked, and it's going to be demolished and replaced with lawn. Does that house have any historic?
It is not on any of the registers. So when we checked, nothing, like the city does a check as well. It's not on any of the registers. And the reason why we need to take that down is it's not in good condition, but that is in the area that is landlocked. Pretty much the fire department cannot get back there. So, it's not in good, it's not in good condition. It's a fire hazard at the end of the day.
And you are in a designated distressed area. We all got maps from Robin. Questions for
You mentioned
this project?
in your conversations with the city, they had some requirements which you were able to meet. Can you share what those were?
So one of the most important ones was our tenants. So we've been doing this since 2010. So we care very much about our tenants, and the city does too. So they required that we engage our tenants, and the way we structured the leases were in alignment with our building cycle, so that no one would be displaced without the right amount of notice and, at the right time, consistent with their lease agreement. That was one of them. They also asked.
Just a quick follow-up there. Are all of the units market rate units or?
Yes, it is a market rate building, yes.
Okay.
Another requirement was engaging our neighbors, which we did. We engaged the Strong Museum and our immediate neighbors. I'm trying to think of, zoning. We had to go through the zoning process with the city, site plan approval. So it was it was like lockstep all along the way. And, whatever they asked us to do, we complied.
Rachel, you want to talk about retail and?
Sure. So as a
Exceptions
reminder
and-
to the board, there's a prohibition against providing financial assistance to retail projects unless there's an exception that applies. So here we're qualifying the project located in a highly distressed census tract. And in order to do that, we need to look at the poverty and the unemployment rate. The poverty rate, in order to qualify, needs to be at or above 20%. And the unemployment rate needs to be 1.25 times the statewide unemployment rate. So this meets both of those criteria, and as such would qualify for financial assistance. There's an additional step we have to go through with this project, which is to receive approval from the highest elected official in the county, which would be the county executive. So following this meeting, assuming approval, we would then go for confirming approval from the county executive.
Okay, thanks, Rachel.
Sure.
Any questions, further questions?
What is the Marriott Tribute portfolio? Where does that, is
Where does
that?
it fit,
Yeah.
in the grant? So,
Yeah.
Marriott has its standard, like the courtyard and many of the other standard, products. But the tribute portfolio, it's one of their boutique portfolios. So what happens there is it gives you more flexibility in matching the hotel to the neighborhood. So, you can theme the hotel based on Rochester, based on the history of Rochester. Doug, would you like to expand a little bit?
Because there's a Marriott that just got built.
That's a Marriott Courtyard Hotel.
Right.
So Marriott has 31 brands. They each have their different swim lanes, and they go from the Ritz-Carlton to the Fairfield Inn. They're all very good hotels with different price points. I'd say that
So where does the Tribute?
the Tribute portfolio sits above the Courtyard, but below a full-service Marriott.
Okay.
And the size of this hotel, we position the hotel with this brand in this market, so it can find its kind of sweet spot in the marketplace. Only 90 rooms, it's not an overly large hotel, but from a price point, it sits above the Courtyard, but depending on the night of the week, below some of the other hotels in the marketplace.
Kind of middle of the range, right?
Yeah, middle of the range, yeah, and we'll accept whatever rate somebody wants to pay.
What's the average square footage per room?
The rooms on average in this hotel are probably around 320 square feet per room. So commensurate with, in this market, of the Hyatt Regency will be 350, the Hilton Garden is 320 square feet. Some rooms are larger, some are smaller. So it's not all large suites, it's not all very small rooms, it's commensurate with the marketplace.
Great.
I have a question.
Yes, Rachel.
So with that 2017 study, there were 4 different options that you looked at. Could you address that at all?
On the multifamily side?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So, in the 2017 study, yes, we looked at 4 different options. And we priced out the options, the various options. In addition to pricing out the options, let's see how I would put it. Just a minute. We had to consider, so each option had a different configuration, so a different number of apartments. And when you looked at each option, the amount, the cost of developing it, and then you come look at the rents that you get back. The rents could not support the cost of development. And in each of those cases, the rents couldn't support the cost of development. The operational costs as well as the project just couldn't support.
What was the rent range that you were looking at?
So that's the biggest hiccup. If you look at the rents, literally, if you go online and look at some of the apartment buildings in the area, the rents there are just on average $100 to $150 dollars per month above our current rents. So with that delta, there's no way to spend $20 million to develop a building when the only delta you're getting is $100 per month.
What's the absolute level there? So you said Your current rents are at what, and then,
So it depends. It depends on whether it's a 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom. Let's say, I'll just give an example of a 2-bedroom. So our 2 bedrooms will range anywhere from, say, $1,100 to $1,250. And if you look at, and this is without existing building, if you literally go online and look, you will see in our area, the 2 bedrooms rent at almost the same price. And so if we invested 20 million and came back and got the same amount of money that we were making before, then it's a complete loss.
Yeah, you're upside down.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions? All right. There was a public hearing on this project on May 12th. Any comments?
No comments.
No comments. And so I'll ask you a few local labor questions. Are you aware of our local labor policy?
Absolutely.
Do you anticipate any local labor exemptions at this time?
No, that's not.
And are you aware that any exemptions need to be requested 45 days in advance?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. The seeker process is complete. We've waived the reading of the resolution. So I'll now ask for a motion for inducement of final resolution approving a real property tax abatement, mortgage recording tax exemption, and sales tax exemption. Is there a motion? Moved by Rhett, seconded by Joe. Any additional comments, questions? All right, I'll take a roll call vote. Jay?
yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Troy?
Yeah.
Joe?
Yes.
Brett?
Yeah.
And yay, so that's unanimous. Congratulations. Motion carries. Thanks for all the good things that you're doing for us in that, former inner loop area that really needs some new life.
And thank you for your conservation support. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
We're really looking forward.
Nice. The next project is Aptitude, it's actually a project modification. Aptitude Rochester LLC. Anna?
Aptitude Rochester LLC is constructing Rock River Apartments, a new student housing community in the town of Henrietta. The project was approved for a shelter rent pilot and mortgage reporting sales tax exemptions in November 2021. The applicant is requesting an increase in project costs of $1,440,781 due to site and building cost increases. The applicant is also asking to release Lot 2 from the pilot documents due to a subdivision of the property. The total project cost is now $60,648,229. The new sales tax exemption amount is not to exceed $1,677,069, and the mortgage reporting tax exemption is not to exceed $336,750.
Okay, let's see, do we have a couple people with us to talk to this modification? Lucas Amalfi, and is Wendy calling in?
Wendy did not join us today, so it's just, you guys are stuck with me.
I'll let her, it's fine. We're okay.
Great. So good afternoon. My name is Lucas Amalfi with Aptitude Development. I can really break down the modification in 3 separate parts. Part 1 would be the project cost increase of $1,440,781 for a new project cost of $60,648,229. In section B of page 2, I more specifically broke down the cost of $261,259 to enhance East River roadwork, $219,000 increased quantity of site lighting, $304,000 drywall increase, $65,000 in mailbox building increase, $591,521 of a low voltage package that unfortunately came in way over budget. I understand there were questions in regards to the material versus labor cost increase. Really what happened there is we took the column on the right and inserted hard contractual numbers, and the column in the middle adjusted based on those new numbers in the original application. We were initially advised from our general contractor to assume that labor cost would be 33.3% more expensive than material cost. In actuality, labor costs were about 35% more expensive than material costs. So that's why the middle column is a bit exaggerated. But again, the column on the right are hard contractual numbers. Part 2 of the application is in regards to bank financing with a loan amount increase of $4,638,935 for a new loan amount of $44,900,000. Really what happened here is when we submitted our original application, we underwrote a loan to cost mortgage of 68%. After our debt brokers brought the project onto the market, we received multiple term sheets for a loan of 75% loan to construction. So we actually signed one of those term sheets and we're ready to close on a loan for $44,900,000 pending the outcome of today's meeting. So that explains why there's less equity now required into the project as the debt increased, the equity decreased. And part 3 of the modification application pertains to the subdivision that just took place. As we communicated prior to our original application at the public hearing and a little bit prior to this modification, we always needed to subdivide the industrial parcel from the residential parcel. That subdivision has finally taken place and we're now looking to release the industrial parcel from the project agreement. And if you have any other questions, please.
Questions, Troy?
Help me better understand 35% labor increase in 6 months.
No, it was actually 2% increase. We originally assumed a 33.3% labor cost premium versus material costs. And in actuality, labor is about 35% more expensive than material.
So the materials, I get that part of it, but I'm confused on it's $625,000 in labor increase. So actually $900,000 in labor increase for all $450,000 in material. From November to now, I'm not understanding how that got there, that increase. I want to know what resource did you use to get to that?
Yeah, completely understood. So in the original application, we were advised by our general contractor to assume a labor cost that was 33.3% more expensive than material costs. So on the original application, our estimate was a bit low for labor costs. So now this middle column is actually a bit exaggerated because it corrects that initial mistake and then also includes the increased cost of the project.
Are you saying it's only a 2.4% increase?
That's correct. I'm saying the estimate was only 2.4% incorrect, which is actually a pretty good estimate for where we were in November. No problem.
Could I ask you a little bit more about the financing? So I'm interpreting that as the lenders basically were willing to finance more of this project than you had initially assumed. Is that fair?
That's completely correct.
Okay, so because that is the case, you're able to reduce the amount of equity that you need to put into the project because you can get more favorable debt.
Completely correct.
Okay, then given that's the case, that's great. I would cheer that if I were in your shoes. But why should we give you a greater mortgage exemption credit for that? That was the marketplace. That does nothing to the project. Project's already done. Why should we be giving you an additional mortgage tax so that you can take equity out?
Yeah, that's a fair question, and I appreciate that. Really, I mean, we are making a significant investment into this community for $60.5 million now. And to be honest, these costs are increasing pretty rapidly, and the project does not look as good as it once did. So we do need every ounce of help to make sure that we don't go under on this project. Because it's actually a significant concern now. I mean, you see the increase of $1.5 million. That's certainly not chump change.
Understood. And I'm separating the sales tax, which be on the $1.5 million versus the mortgage recording tax, which is, and if the project, I look at it as a layperson and say, if the bankers are willing to give you a greater percentage on the project, it's probably a pretty good project. They're not known for getting too far out on the thin ice. But in addition, you're asking the taxpayers now to give you an additional incentive. And I'm struggling with that, so help me out.
Okay, I understand that. I mean, initially, we took a very conservative approach to this application. In the back of our minds, we always thought we could get a 75% loan to cost. We have before, I'll be completely transparent. The lender is Bank of America. We've done close to $1 billion of debt with them. They're extremely comfortable with us, and we just need the extra benefit to make sure that this project, still flows. We actually need every ounce we can get as of right now, just because of these cost increase and hiring local labor. It's actually somewhat more expensive than some of the national guys that follow us around all over the country. And we have no problem with that. We've only had one local labor exemption. So again, we're really helping out the community here. We're increasing the overall supply of housing, which is always good, brings rent down. But to be fair on our side, we could have assumed a 75% LTC at application, and assuming that the vote would have been the same.
Rachel?
So I would differentiate, what is the stage of the project here? It's not, is it complete?
12 months away, so I can give you a quick construction update unless you want to.
Construction update. The only differentiating fact when we've seen requests where we've got an increased mortgage amount, the applicants have already closed on a mortgage, and then they're coming back and they're refinancing, and we've said, look, that's 2 bites of the apple, we're not gonna do that. Here, we did approve the project in November. We closed on the pilot agreement only in December, but they have not been provided any mortgage recording tax exemption to date, if that's helpful at all in your analysis.
Yes, no, but they are asking for an increase in the mortgage recording tax.
Right, they just haven't received, there hasn't been an original mortgage already that they're refinancing and pulling out equity. This is the initial benefit that they've not yet received.
Okay. Rachel, along that point, I know this is coming in as one, at this point, can we separate out the vote for the sales tax and the mortgage tax?
Yes.
Can we do 2 separate votes on that?
Yes.
Madam Chair, or you?
We can do that. We can do 2 separate motions, one for the sales tax and one for the mortgage tax.
Do I need to make a motion to do that, or?
We also have the motion to separate that separate parcel of land that's all in one.
Right, so it's one plot of land. We knew from the beginning that the industrial portion was gonna come out. So since we're entertaining the rest of the approvals, we're bringing the release of that parcel to the board as well.
Okay. I guess.
So is that 3 motions?
You can do it as 3 motions, yes. And there wouldn't need to be a motion because there's no motion on the floor right now.
Got it.
Okay, any other?
I got one question for you. So, Aptitude Ranch LLC, that's a subdivision of, it's a subsidiary of another group, or do you take investors in? Help me understand, because you said you're national.
Yeah, so Aptitude Development is a national company based out of New Jersey. We create entities for every local project that we do. So, we have Aptitude Birmingham, Alabama, Aptitude Arkansas. This is specific Aptitude Rochester. This is the only project that Aptitude Rochester owns. We take family and friends, investors into each of our projects.
Okay.
So, yes.
Okay.
But they invest on a local basis.
Okay, what do we want the first motion to?
Rachel's gonna tell you.
Do we
So
do
I
the
will tell
increase
you, are you
first
taking
of the 1.4?
The sales tax motion first will be savings not to exceed. It's on 102 of your board packet, if it's easier to look at the recital or the resolve clause. 102, section 2. So the sales tax amount is an amount not to exceed 1.677069.
Okay, so I'll ask for a motion for this new sales tax exemption not to exceed 1.6 77069.
I'll make a motion.
There's moved by Jay, seconded by Rhett. Any additional comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I need to abstain.
We have one abstention from Lisa. There we go. Everyone, all right, motion carries. Second motion is that the mortgage recording tax exemption is not to exceed $336,750. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, moved by Jay, seconded by anyone? Seconded by Troy. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
I oppose.
We have two
And I have to abstain.
and one
We've
abstention.
got 3. Rhett, what was your vote? Did you vote? Aye. So we've got 3, 1 abstention, and 2 nay votes, so the motion does not carry on the mortgage tax.
Okay. All right, and we'll do the third motion, which was regarding the release of the certain parcel of land from the lease agreement, leaseback agreement, and pilot agreement. Is there a motion on that?
I'll make a motion.
All right, moved by Jay, seconded by Brett. Any additional comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, that one carries, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right,
Okay, appreciate it, thank you.
thank you. All right, 587 LLC is another modification, it's another increase. It's specific to the mortgage recording tax. I don't believe we have anyone here, so Anna, you
587 LLC, a real estate holding company, is redeveloping a vacant property in the city of Rochester into a 16-unit apartment complex, 2 of which will be affordable for households earning equal or less than 60% of the area median income. In October of 2021, the applicant was approved for a real property tax abatement, mortgage recording tax exemption, and sales tax exemption. In April of 2022, the project was approved for an increase in project costs of $516,718 due to an increase in construction costs. At the time, the board only approved an increase in the sales tax exemption. The applicant is now requesting an increase in mortgage tax exemption, resulting in savings not to exceed $13,445.
Thanks, Anna. Any questions on that? Okay, I'll ask for a motion to approve an increase in the mortgage recording tax exemption not to exceed $13,445.
Before that motion, I just want to, again, we see materials increasing at approximately 200,000 and labor increasing 3 times. It's up to 300, well, 2 times. So that it seems to be a consistent increase of the labor and the material costs again. Just something I would like to stay conscientious of how they're calculating these labor increases. Just a comment.
Maybe we can probe a little bit more when these applications
We
come in.
typically get their revised construction budgets and their construction contracts. We did in this instance, and also with, like Lucas said, we're getting their construction contracts at a higher price.
Troy, if you look at it in this case, the ratio kind of stays the same.
Right, that's,
Yeah.
at least it's consistent. isn't it?
Yeah, yep. I mean, labor being 1.5 times materials, the increases is that.
Okay, I think we had a motion on the floor. Did we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any additional comments, questions? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. What's that noise?
We missed the motion.
Yeah.
But we heard the second.
Oh, I had asked for the
Somebody-
motion and then Troy asked a question.
Okay. Did somebody make the motion?
I'll make it.
There you go.
A second and a second time.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Procyon Properties LLC.
Everyone made a note.
So you want to walk us through that?
Prohibition Properties LLC, a real estate holding company, received board approval in July 2016 for the acquisition, renovation, and expansion of a 44,000 square foot building in the town of Gates for tenant Big Apple Deli Products, a broadline food distributor. In April of 2018, Prohibition was approved for a $330,000 increase. In January 2019, the board approved the renewal of the sales tax exemption. The applicant is seeking approval for a new tenant, Lipari Foods Operating Company LLC, a food distribution company based in Warren, Michigan. Lipari Foods will acquire all the assets of Big Apple Deli Products. Lipari will continue to operate the facility as a food distribution company and expects job growth.
Okay, thanks, Anna. Are there any questions on this? Basically a new tenant. Okay, I'll ask for a motion to approve a sublease to a new tenant at the facility.
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Lisa, seconded by Brad. Any additional changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Keeler Park Community Partners LP.
Keeler Park Community Partners, LP, proposes to purchase and renovate Keeler Park Apartments in the city of Rochester. Keeler Park is an affordable housing project with 526 units located in two 16-story towers. Keeler Park proposes renovating the units, common areas, building systems, and exterior improvements. The board originally approved a shelter rent pilot agreement, tax-exempt bond financing, and sales tax and mortgage reporting tax exemptions in December of 2021. This approval is to authorize the issuance of tax-exempt bonds. The project is expected to create one new FTE, and the cost-benefit ratio is 3:1.
And do we have John Frazier with us?
Yes.
Hi, welcome. What is your position with Community Preservation
Sure,
Partners?
so I'm Director of Development for Community Preservation Partners.
Well, would you like to elaborate further
Sure,
on the
yeah,
project?
that was a pretty good summary. So Community Preservation Partners, CPP, we are an active preservation developer, meaning that we acquire and renovate existing affordable housing communities and extend the affordability, keep the affordability up. We've actually been in front of this board previously. We acquired and renovated Lincoln Gardens, also the Cedarwood Towers, which is a great project for us. So excited to be back in Rochester for another exciting project. I guess I'm not going to summarize our scope because I think that you guys just did that. But we do have an exciting renovation plan. Meaningful, major building systems, really make sure that the property is physically sustainable for the foreseeable future, modernized, just really make it a pleasant place to live and for residents to be confident. Like I said, we plan to deepen and extend the affordability restrictions that are currently attached to the project. We're going to make 100% of the units part of the low-income tax credit program, so that they will all be restricted between 50 and 60% of our unique. Besides that, I'm here for questions.
What is it currently?
There's currently a mix. There's a large Section 8 contract on the property, so that's actually up to about 80% AMI. And then several of the units are already restricted to the tax credit program, but not 100%.
Okay.
So there's 3 or 4 different bands of affordability,
Okay.
including some markets.
So there won't be any market rate after.
No, not going through market, it'll be 100%.
This will be very much like Cedarwood.
The structure is actually exactly like Cedarwood.
It was a great one.
Yeah, thank you, yeah, I wish I could take credit, but I didn't work on that project, it came on right as that was completing, but, yeah, we're very proud of Cedarwood.
So she was saying it's 90% Section 8, is that accurate?
Yeah, it's, yeah, approximately, I don't know the exact unit count, but I think there's 490, 491.
Yep.
Section 8 units and 526 total.
So it's a little different than Cedarwood then, right?
Cedarwood might have had a larger percentage cap contract,
Yeah.
but the structure is still gonna be the same.
But in Section 8, there wasn't Section 8 on Cedarwood that high, was it?
No, I don't think so. I don't recall it being that
Right.
high. Yeah, it's much higher.
And this is low income Section 8? Because I know there's senior Section 8 and then there's
Sure.
low income Section 8.
So this is, the contracts essentially are the same. The only thing difference would be under the senior, there'd be an age restriction.
Right.
So this, basically, the contract section would be exactly the same, it's just that clause is included.
Yeah.
But this would be for, yeah, for low income families. The Section 8 contract would be for usually those making more than 80% of their median income. We are further deepening the affordability because those are also going to be tax credit units, which would be down between 50 and 60%.
Any other questions? There's additional information on page 138 and 139. All right, I will ask for a motion for final resolution authorizing the issuance of tax exempt revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed 70 million.
So moved.
Moved by Jay, seconded by Rhett. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Off you go. Congratulations. Good luck to you. All right, our executive director is going to give us an update on the Monroe County Comprehensive Plan. And you have copies in our materials in our places. Thank you.
As you know, in 2020, this board approved allocating $200,000 to support funding and update to the Monroe County Comprehensive Plan, which was 40 years overdue. And it was something that County Executive out of Bello was passionate about, bringing the comprehensive plan up to date. And I'd like to introduce our senior planner, Patrick Gooch, who's here with us today to dive into the details. Pat is very close to this effort, and I want to commend him for the job well done working with our consultants and with our planning division. Doing a lot of community engagement outreach at this time. So without further ado, Pat Gooch.
Sana,
Apologies, we're just trying to get the screens up. However, you have the same presentation on paper, so I can move forward.
fine.
And actually, this makes it easier for me. So, first of all, the county's comprehensive plan has been ongoing since August of 2021. I spoke to you previously about this, so I'm going to go over some of the initial details, but if anyone who's not at that meeting and has questions, please feel free to jump in. For the purposes of time, I'll gloss over the beginning parts. So, as you are aware, we are working with a team of consultants. Their focus areas are comprehensive planning, environmental planning, CMS companies, which is a planning and engineering firm out of Rochester. Fairweather Consulting is an economic development entity out of the Hudson Valley area. Ellisman Consulting is a housing and neighborhoods revitalization strategist out of the Syracuse area. And then we have a website and branding consultant called Food Concepts out of Rochester as well. So, as Director Liz mentioned, we have not done a comprehensive plan since the 70s. It is older than I, to be frank, and the county executive. The problem with that is that it doesn't take into account certain things that we need to take into account. The world has changed dramatically in the last 40, 50 years. And so we need to look at certain things and plan our future in a different way. So what does that mean for this county plan? It means that we need to think about community interest and countywide impacts. We need to develop strategies to protect, enhance, and encourage balanced growth and development. There are challenges that our municipalities face in common that we need to oversee together. One solution in a community could be a solution in another community without reinventing the wheel and going through excessive work. And then we also need to encourage and facilitate public-private partnership, so that way we can solve the problems of our day in new ways or in ways that we used to, but maybe have died down for whatever reason. And then most importantly, a county comprehensive plan is a guide for investing in county resources. And so what I mean by that is it will help both the county and the administration and legislature currently and in the future make decisions on what is important to them and to us as a community. And how we'll get there and how we determine that is based on outreach and engagement, which I'll go into in a little bit. So how does it work for the individual county member? It sets priorities, as I mentioned, and so some things that are very tangent to Monroe County's way of life and that we can control are things like roads, parks and trails, health and wellness to some degree, community development, and of course, economic development. The plan can support or bolster projects that impact local communities. Sometimes things need to be elevated to higher decision-making authorities. This is a place where we can advocate those, and then later on point to them when we're reaching for grant applications or having conversations with political figures who can help find funding for us. Just a quick overview of what Monroe County is and does. So you'll see here that we have, of course, the county executive, we have the legislature, and then you'll see a list of departments and services on your right-hand side. Most of those are within the purview of the county executive's office. There is some nuance there. Then you'll see some elected offices that are not controlled by the county executive, and so they are involved in this process, but our control with those services are a little different. We will also be speaking about things that are outside county control. That is perfectly normal and acceptable in a comprehensive plan. It is not meant to just be a guide for county resources or a business, county government, business operations plan. It truly is meant to be the voice of the community, what we want to see, how we want to move forward, what our community should look like as we develop. So we will be incorporating those conversations into this work, making sure we document them, and where appropriate, we will point to organizations, volunteer groups, community-based leaders who may be able to help us fulfill certain goals that the community has set out for us. Project schedule, I believe the project schedule has changed slightly since I last spoke with you, and that is that we've extended it by 3 months in order to better get engagement during the summer. During the pandemic, we have had challenges with engagement, and so we have extended the schedule to lengthen that process so we have a better opportunity to meet with individuals. So what that means is rather than having the finished document in September like we originally planned, we will have it in December, and we will go to adoption for the county legislature, ideally in the beginning part of 2023, which is January or so. But everything else is on schedule and moving according to plan. This actually resets to the original schedule that the consultants in the county agreed to, and we advanced due to trying to get this done within the calendar year, and then realized that there were some disadvantages to doing so.
Is there any opposition issues relative to getting the approval of the county ledge on this plan, or the other parties are sort of lined up together and supportive, and here we go?
So that is a question I can't fully answer, but I can say that the funding that was authorized through the county ledge, thankfully from this body, was well received, and it was almost the entire legislature approving that. So I'm hopeful that that will be the case as we move forward through the adoption process. We also are working with legislators individually on occasion where they reach out and are interested in this. So we're hopeful that the content will speak for itself, but we're also building a coalition to move this forward as well.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So focus areas. I believe we briefly talked about this at the last update to this board. The changes that I have here are just really to the content, so you can see a little bit more. But I have news that we will have better details coming up in the next month or two. The first sections of the plan will be drafted and submitted to the county by the end of May, and then we will be sending those or releasing those to the public in June. So the focus areas that Monroe County has decided upon is health, environment, infrastructure, people and communities, and economy. A comprehensive plan is meant to touch on all subjects. However, it really can't go in depth on any of them because of the nature of comprehensive planning. It's just too broad. And the resources and time to do that would be monumental. So what we've done is group into these focus areas and with many subcategories that help us make sure we tackle all aspects of life in Monroe County. So health includes things like wellness, quality of life, food security, safety, parks and recreation, healthy indoor environments, community mental health, and land use. As you can see, that's a pretty large list, but what we will do is touch upon those as necessary and focus on the ones that are more important or come up in community conversations. Environment, similarly, it's a lengthy list: resiliency, climate change, agriculture, flooding, development constraints, and water quality. What you're seeing on the side are early graphics for the document. They have not yet been released to the public in a form other than this presentation that has been given at various meetings. Infrastructure, of course, this is one where the county may have a little more control. However, there are, of course, aspects of infrastructure that we cannot control. So transportation, things like roads, sidewalks, trails, bike lanes, that is within the county's purview. Public transit is really not. The airport, although it is a county-owned entity, that is still a private entity that runs. So we have some influence there, but we can't control it. Alternative energy, these are things like solar, wind, waste, and then the availability of EV charging. This is an area that maybe we can lead in, but once again, we're not able to control. Waste and recycling, that is something we take a look at, and we're also working on that through our climate action plan, which is housed out of the Department of Environmental Services in Monroe County. Water quality, of course, a critical issue for Monroe County and the county itself. Communication broadband, as you're aware, we have a separate initiative moving forward with that. They are speaking to each other to make sure that what we can learn there, what we can learn through this process are shared, so that way we don't duplicate the work. People and communities, this is a very broad category that is really meant to sum up how do we enjoy living in Monroe County, or do we not for whatever reasons. So it goes into issues of community and neighborhood character, population centers, demographic changes that have happened over the last 50 years, housing, land use, public space, and historic resources. Economy. I'm going to spend a little more time on this, of course. So what are we looking at within the economy section? We're looking at employment trends, workforce trends, economic opportunities, innovation, and competitiveness. We are still in the preliminary stage of this, so I haven't seen all the materials on the economy yet, but I will go into some details that we have from our consultants. So as you're aware, the Upstate Revitalization Initiative and the Finger Lakes Regional Economic Development Councils identified 3 pillars of regional economic revitalization. We, of course, are paying attention to those within this effort to be consistent with efforts from the state and from local municipalities that are working towards these goals as well. So we have optics, photonics, and imaging, agriculture and food production, and next generation manufacturing and technology. So what we know and what we have identified is that Monroe County has strong industries in this area. It's obvious that's why they were selected. But specifically, when you drill down, there are areas within Monroe County that are already advantageous. Aerospace, vehicles and defense, communications equipment and services, downstream metal products. These are industries that use metal, like rolled steel, food processing and manufacturing, and plastics. I do have a question here that I'd like you to ponder until the end of this presentation. Are there other industries we should be focusing on within this plan? We've focused on these in terms of what we know is available in Monroe County and what fits into the URI, but it's not all we're thinking about. Just a quick little chart that will be in the plan and probably will be updated before that. But this is just a quick little chart identifying some economic advantages. It uses things like location quotient and competitive effect. As you're probably familiar with, location quotient is how specialized we are in the area, in that particular area relative to other areas. So whether it's Rochester, MSA, or upstate. This, of course, is a statistic that allows us to know we're doing slightly better, but also that creates opportunities and challenges. Because doing better than the rest of the county with some of these sectors is great, but it also means that maybe we have our eggs in one basket, or if there is a issue that affects that specific industry, we may have some challenges there. So it's something just to be aware of more than anything.
So how do you put these numbers in context? Under communications equipment, Monroe County's at 5.76. Does that mean it's 5 times greater than what you would see in the U.S.?
Yep. So one is.
Or,
I apologize. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So a location quotient statistic means that if it's a 1, it's essentially the national average. If you're above it, you're highly specialized in that area. If you're below it, you are lagging behind the national average. So of course, with Harris Communications and some other entities, we are highly specialized in that area. which is great when that area is booming. It can be a challenge or something to think about when just areas like that maybe may not have a boom. And not that that's an area that we're particularly worried about, but that's how we use those statistics to understand where we are moving forward as a county.
A more general question is, as this plan is looked at, I know it's a comprehensive plan, but does it take into account, or does it try and tease out how much private money would follow public investment as well? So to try and where the public dollars can be leveraged by, you can get a multiplier effect with private investment as well.
So I won't say that it will tease that out in any significant way. But what it will do is allow us, when we are applying for grants as the municipalities of Monroe County or as the economic development entity of Monroe County, it will allow us to point to certain things in that document that make our argument stronger, which then can increase, potentially leverage better funding because of that. So whether that's private or public funding.
Is there any place in the county plan where that is examined, where that multiplier effect would?
So the specific multiplier effects of
Where private money would follow public investment.
So we will be pointing out where there should be private entities jumping into things that Monroe County residents said they wanted, but not specifically that. But we can take that down and tease that out. The plan is still very much in draft stage, so it is not a final document yet. So we will be teasing out many things, and we'll be responding to questions like this, public meetings, and making sure that it is representative of what people in Monroe County actually would like to see us do in here.
Okay.
So I'll make a note of that, thank you. So speaking of outreach and engagement, so that is really the heart of this plan. The physical work, the drafting of the document, the data collection is extremely important, but it is only important as the ability to communicate with the public and listen and learn from the public. So we are going to pop-up events. That is a term that we use to say we go to something that's already existing, rather than having a public meeting where we invite people who can only come on their limited schedule. We go to events, we talk to them about what's going on, we make sure they're aware, we give them materials, and we make sure they're aware of our website, so that way they can either sign up for emails or come to the next meeting. We do have public meetings as well. We had 2 back in March. One was virtual, one was in person. We had about 100 people total at those 2 meetings. 100 people is not enough for a community of 750,000, but we supplement with the pop-up events to try to reach far more people and rely on network effects. Unfortunately, as we know, it's hard to come to these public meetings, especially when they're in the evening, weekends, or weekdays. We all have busy schedules, and sometimes this just doesn't make the top of the list. Our next public meeting is going to be June 29th at the Olmsted Lodge at Highland Park. We don't have a virtual meeting scheduled for that one yet, but we'll be doing something virtually as well. We have found, of course, as I'm sure you're familiar with, virtual sessions are now welcomed by many people and easier to attend. So it's a great addition, something that before the pandemic, people were hesitant to do, and now it's really a staple of community engagement. We will also be working on stakeholder meetings. Those are specific meetings focused on the focus areas, where we will invite a group of people who work in that sector, whether public, private, everyone who is focused in that area. So think about things like economics, think about things like health, let a roundtable, have them come potentially sit in this room and discuss how we can move forward as a community together. We held municipal stakeholder meetings. I believe I mentioned this, or we just had this happen when I last spoke. So we met with 29 of the 30 communities. We're still working on the last community who has just been challenged to meet with due to other priorities. But what that does is help us align our work with their municipal efforts. So we don't want to supplement or supplant what's going on at the municipality. We want to build off of their strengths, their ideas, what their vision for their community is. And I just have a few pictures here to show you what's going on, and then what we did up here at Lake Ontario Beach Park. So the goals of outreach, I think we communicated about this previously. We want to hear about residents. We want to hear from residents what they believe Monroe County should be in the future, what it is now, what their challenges are. We want to use that information to shape the recommendations that will come in this plan. We also want to make sure that they're aware of it, so that way we can build that coalition of individuals who support the comprehensive planning efforts and have a greater likelihood of having this be adopted and, more importantly, implemented through Monroe County. The goal is that we will be doing this for the next year or so, finishing up in 2023. we then need to turn around and implement the recommendations and make things happen. So that is potentially seeking grants, that is potentially seeking policy work that happens either at the county or local levels to make sure that people are informed about what's going on and that some of the recommendations that could move Monroe County in the direction we want are able to do so. As I same thing as before, we really just want to make sure people hear from us and understand where we're going. And then, this is just a quick little word cloud from our March meetings. These are some of the words that came up the most. As you can imagine, a lot of them are related to economic development, jobs, development, workforce, manufacturing. Some specific quotes fail me, however, it is clearly focused on the nuts and bolts of what people need to worry about every day in life. Next steps, if you're out and about in the community, look for us at public events. We plan on being at farmers markets throughout the county. We're also attending a few other events. We'll make sure that a formal communication regarding the June 29th public meeting is sent over. And then, as I mentioned, summer 2022, stakeholder focus groups, draft plan, late fall 2022, and then the adoption process in the winter of 2023. And if you have any questions or follow-up that you would like to provide to us, feel free to email myself or any of my colleagues who are listed up there, and then planboard@monroecounty.gov, which is a specific email address for the steering committee as well. I'm happy to take any questions.
So this is a roadmap for what, the next 20 years for Monroe County? Is that, I mean, we're talking long range.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
But these are our priorities that we identify today, and then you fund them and you put capital dollars behind it and make the investments.
Exactly.
But it's the guideline, it's the road.
Yeah, it doesn't set us in stone, but it does provide guidance, and depending on how we lay this out, it can help us ensure that what we're doing in the future is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Very thorough.
Thank you.
It's about time, right?
It is.
I mean, now that after how many years without updating the last one?
Yeah.
Any other questions for Patrick? All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Before we get to the dashboard, I wanted to note that the county executive hosted the State of the County address last Thursday. And as I communicated to the board via email, I hope all of you had an opportunity to perhaps watch the video. The county executive shared very positive remarks about the work of COMIDA since his administration began in 2020. He shared some project highlights and positive affirmations about the COMIDA Modernization Initiative. And he also shared an update on our workforce development commitments, highlighting the Young-Tech $400,000 commitment that was made at the previous month's meeting, as well as a spotlight on the Empower Workforce Development Partnership with Monroe Community College. There was a video that was shared that put a spotlight on two individuals who've gone through the Empower Healthcare Program and are successfully pursuing careers in healthcare and ramping up, looking all the way ahead at potentially becoming a nurse and a doctor, actually. So we wanted to share that video with you if everybody has a few minutes to take a look, because it provides you with some great perspective on the real life impacts that the work that COMIDA is leading in Monroe County. So Allison is going ahead and putting that up on the screen.
I was in this program. I was working 4 jobs plus because I picked up odd gigs here and there. Now I'm working 2 because I'm still a single mother and I still got to put food on the table. But I have a different direction for where I want my mental focus to be.
Seeing me now and actually getting close to the end, I'm getting excited, I'm getting happy. So yeah, it's definitely helped personally, emotionally, and physically.
Now I learned about the LPN program, which is the Licensed Practitioner Nurse Program, and I'm like, oh wow, this is more. I want to further my education. I want to do more, and now I'm like, okay, there's an LPN and an RN. All right, let's keep going.
I do want to go further. I do want to be a doctor. So it's like these little small details help you scope in your foundation to get to the point that you need to be to get to the doctor.
I am utilizing the childcare option. It is difficult being able to find a babysitter while in school. I think this program they will guide you or they will guide you to the proper schools if you need any additional help somewhere.
It's going to help me financially, and it's going to help me complete my goal. So it's like, okay, yeah, this is definitely something for me. So I felt like it opened up a door that was, in my situation, closed at the time that I felt was closed. So it just opened it up, and it was like a bright light, and I just walked through, and then I was here.
Honestly, I just want my son to continue to do what he's doing now. He's my biggest supporter. Like, anytime I need to study for something, he's like, Mommy, what are we learning? He's willing to learn with me. I just want him to be proud. I want him to know we're able to do this. No matter how difficult it gets, just keep pushing. You're able to be wherever you want to be, and no one needs to classify how you need to go about what you do. That's it. That's it.
That's awesome. Thanks, Allison. Thank you, the Deputy Director, Robin Finnerty, for the suggestion of sharing that video. Like I said, it shows you the real world impact of our programs. And the Empower program is very successful and growing. And next Monday at 10 a.m., there's going to be a grand opening over at the Forward Center, MCC's new workforce development facility downtown, right down the street actually. And the Empower is going to be really administered and housed within that facility. I'll make sure to share that invitation to that grand opening with all of you. And just a quick peek at our dashboard.
Before you leave the county address, say the county address, I think it's worth noting that, we've had a history here of our board and lots of really in-depth work, great projects, creating, really billions of dollars over the years. But we haven't always gotten the recognition, a positive recognition of what we've done. And that's what I think Adam was doing in the State of the County address, is really talking about the impact, workforce development, thanking the board, and that's meaningful. You should be feeling proud of what you're doing because you're a part of a very successful endeavor. A big chunk of the county's growth is actually coming through our organization. So give yourself a pat.
Yes, they're all volunteers, and we take a lot
Well, and the
of
staff, I mean,
time.
we can't do anything without. Yes, Anna, and Rachel, and Robin, Lydia is different. She's
Short timer.
She's leaving us.
Yes.
How dare you even consider?
You got the palm tree coming down.
It's time. It's time. We've appreciated very much all that you've done. I'm sure we're gonna get together and have some celebration of the retirement. We'll be crying, but yeah, kind of thing.
She's leaving big shoes to fill and a lot of holes in our hearts. But 20 years of service, in public service in New York State, 17 to Monroe County. We'll be recognizing Lydia formally at a future board meeting, and of course, we're going to be having a celebration. But thank you, Anne, for recognizing that. And owing to Lydia's hard work and that of staff, our dashboard, the numbers are significant and growing. Year to date, Greg mentioned right off the top of the meeting that the progress that we might have made in any given year, we've already made in 4 months. We already made in 4 months of 2022. A lot of big job creating projects on our dashboard that we're responsible for furthering. And those projects result in fee income coming through the board. The board makes determinations about how that fee revenue should be spent. And $2.5 million was committed through the modernization initiative this year for workforce development purposes, with $400,000 of that going to YAMTEP last month. And we have some leads on some very transformative and exciting workforce development programs in the community that we're going to be bringing before the board for your consideration with regard to that workforce development fund in the very near future, so stay tuned. And I just want to thank you all again for your time and thank staff, and also recognize and thank Pat Luge for the comprehensive plan update.
Thank you. Any other items to come before the board? All right, I'll have ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Moved by Joe, seconded by Brett. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting